You're a huge fan of. I mean, we had a disagreement about The Graduate. I remember not too long ago. I mean, probably last year or something, because that was obviously his breakout role.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always thought The Graduate is overrated.
There are a lot of people who feel, not a lot, but there are people who do feel that way. I mean,
but you do not.
No, I don't think. But it's not my favorite role of his. But I think what's impressive about that is he's nearly 30 years old, and he's playing obviously a much younger character in the film. And I found that always to be impressive. But it is one. I do think it is one of those landmark films. But now, is it one of my favorites? No, I'd have to go with Straw Dogs,
which was not 2 years later, but about 4 years later, a collaboration with Peckinpah. And I think when you look at his early stuff, and of course it has to do with the period of time that he made movies too, the daring kind of movies that were being made. You look at a Midnight Cowboy.
That's another one.
Yeah, you look at A Graduate, which was intended for a Robert Redford type, so that speaks largely to Mike Nichols' bravery in casting Hoffman for that as well.
Right.
You look at a Little Big Man, which is a movie he did right after Midnight Cowboy, which is an astounding, wide-spanning, versatile role because he's playing very young and very old.
Right.
And his collaboration with Peckinpah in a very, very challenging movie, Straw Dogs, which I have found over the years has grown in reverence. There's like this resurrection of Straw Dogs that has happened in the past 10 years. Have you found that?
It has, yeah. I mean, even Criterion released a edition of it not long ago. And it's you know that. I mean, as A Graduate, obviously I know one of your favorites is Kramer versus Kramer. The one he did with McQueen, Papillon, is very good. There's a lot of good. I mean, Tootsie is actually one that I love a lot, and that's from the 80s, and I like that one.
He was, some of the great classic movies. All the President's Men, of course.
Yeah, that's how can we? That's another one. He's like, boom, the two of them working together was just magic.
Him there with Redford, who they wanted for The Graduate, And what makes All the President's Men special is their rapport and their chemistry, but there's something very technical behind that because they had an idea early on that this should be like a working couple, like a married couple. They should be able to finish each other's sentences. So not only did they learn their dialogue, they learned the other's dialogue, and they made it some kind of almost a skit in a way to finish the other sentence. Leading up to their own line.
Right.
And so there's this special kind of give and take between the two of them in that movie, which is absolutely part of what's essential in making that relationship work in that film. I know that Lenny was a movie that very mixed, as most Fosse movies were critically.
Right.
I don't know how successful Lenny was. It's not a movie that I'm necessarily crazy about or invested in that deeply.
No, but it's like, for a lot of us, it was, the only exposure we had to Lenny Bruce before actually going out and then discovering his, watching, you can watch on YouTube, you can watch him and, read his stuff, and he just is such, but he was, for the longest time, he couldn't separate the two because of the movie. I thought he did a really good job in that. The other movie I like comes later on, and it is not a well-regarded movie at all, and that's Hero. The Stephen Frears movie. I think he's wonderful in that. I really do.
Well, and the worry there was it took him a long time to figure out how to play that role and not make it too Ratso-Rizzo-ish.
Right, and it is. You could definitely. There's a lot of links to that classic character.
Yeah. Kramer versus Kramer is great, and I think it's one of his highlights. Just because there's no eccentricity, there's nothing that he's really depending upon no affectations or anything. It's very honest about a father trying to do the best he can, and it's emotional. And when I think of Dustin Hoffman now, and anyone that's seen him in awards ceremonies or interviews, he gets very emotional very easily. He's just a wonderfully emotional guy. And I see that starting there with Kramer versus Kramer.
Right.
It was great in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And Straight Time. Roland, have you seen Straight Time?
Who made that?
Ulla Grossbard.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I haven't seen that.
Well, that's one of the unsung movies in his resume. And as I mentioned before, it's his favorite performance of his own. I remember him saying that years ago. Straight Time, it's one of those 70s movies like Hardcore is for me, Straight Time is for other people. Like, this is a quintessential movie from the period. Emmett Walsh plays like the parole officer, and he's wonderfully gruff and offensive, and it's a really good film and a strong performance from him. So that's out on DVD, Jerry?
Yeah, it's out on DVD, yeah.
And then stuff like Tootsie, which is obviously very personal to him.
It's Tootsie, I never got that movie. It didn't appeal to me.
Really?
Yeah. I just didn't think it was funny, and I just didn't get, it just wasn't into it, you know. I thought it was very lightweight.
Right.
No, I can see
well,
that.
I think it is. I think it's designed to feel like that, and yet within it are some pretty weighty issues.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dealing with ego first of all, and then dealing with gender issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of fools you in a way, but. What interests me a lot about it is how Hoffman is parroting the perception of him as this really egotistical perfectionist, this difficult person, and his bravery to kind of step out and confront that, as well as to look pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great Bill Murray performance too in that movie.
Yeah, and I do think he's hysterical in it. We've got stuff. Joel likes Tootsie. He's a big fan of Tootsie. He's never seen Kramer versus Kramer. Joel, get on that, man.
Yeah, man, get on it. It's worthwhile. It's definitely worthwhile checking out.
He's done some crap though, hasn't he? Like, what was that movie he did with Matthew Broderick when he's supposed to be the tough
Family
guy?
Business.
Oh, Family Business. Yeah. I don't remember much about it. I remember watching it, but I don't remember.
Yeah, he can't play tough.
Well, no, I get. There's a place where he can play tough. I mean, he something like Straw Dogs.
Mm-hmm. But he has to change. He has that.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what so many people had a problem with at the time. I mean, you know.
Well, it works against type. I mean, it's not something. It's unexpected that he has to assume that role. I mean, it's unexpected for him too. That's what makes it work, because he is not that man, and he has to kind of dig into his base instincts to become that man.
And that's kind of like, you know, the movie. I guess a movie like that was definitely influenced by that was the one with Hopkins. And The Edge is kind of like that in some ways.
Right.
Which was originally called Bookworm, I think.
Right. Which isn't a great title for action.
No, it's not it's not. But there are some things, though, that he's later on. I mean, there are some things that I was actually thinking about this. What are the things he's done recently? And there are some movies that I do like. We talked about The Runaway Jury when we were talking about the Hackman. I like that. I do like I Heart Huckabees. I know a lot of people aren't crazy about that movie. On the other one, Stranger Than Fiction, I thought he was, he added some to that. Now, I've never seen Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium, but I've heard a lot of bad things about it.
Right. I've seen it.
Is it as bad as everyone says? I mean,
it's not a great film. He's colorful in it. He's, he finds a note and he plays it, and he's enjoyable in it.
But I guess obviously the standout recently in the last would be Wag the Dog.
Right.
Where he's doing Robert Evans and.
Well, and he plays kind of tough in Confidence, right?
No, Confidence I liked. That was Confidence, with the one with Ed Burns. And Amy Garcia, right.
How about Outbreak?
Outbreak, I think, is a solid. It's an Edge of Darkness kind of movie. It's one of those solid, sturdy movies.
Outbreak was the one. Outbreak was the one that was supposed to. I remember because actually a friend of ours, John Landau, was out here when they were going to make the Crisis in the Hot Zone movie. That was the rival, and that was filming up in Frederick, Maryland, and that never took off. And that was the one everyone thought would be the big hit based on the Robert Preston?
Scary book.
The Hot Zone. And I remember, but Outbreak beat it, and it's it is like Jamie's absolutely right. It's a very entertaining film. What about Moonlight Mile?
Yeah, a very personal movie for Brad Silberling.
I like that a lot.
A good dramatic film.
Yeah.
The one that I'm sorry, Roland, go ahead.
Didn't Hoffman do American Buffalo on film?
Yeah,
yes.
He did. Mm-hmm.
Because Pacino backed out of it. Yes.
Yeah. I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen the film either. I mean, I know the play.
This Dennis Franz one with Dennis Franz and the boy, I think Sean Nilsson from the movie Fresh.
Yes.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely worthwhile checking out.
Yeah, I mean the play's great. I saw
Yeah.
I saw William H. Macy do that on stage. He was great.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about, and Dean, I think I see that you're on the line, and I'll pick it up in a second. There's something about Pacino, too, in that they followed each other throughout their careers. Yeah. They were compared a lot by critics for having similar qualities, similar voices, and, the nasally, high-pitched voices and everything. And one turned a movie down, the other would take it. Buffalo's one, Kramer versus Kramer is one,
That's what David Thompson in his biographical dictionary film in the chat on his part on Dustin Hoffman, he brings that up, the whole thing with Pacino, everything that you just talked about. He goes into detail about that. The one
that I just want to mention as an unsung movie for me.
Okay,
this might be controversial, and then I'll pick up Dean's call. Is Sphere. Sphere, for me, is I've always loved Sphere.
Okay.
And for me, it's this tremendous puzzle of a movie that builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. Mm-hmm. For me, the ending doesn't work because thinking about it, no ending could work because
I think they've dug themselves in.
Yeah, they built it so intensely, but I see a lot of The Shining in Sphere. Like when he's opening the cabinets and you hear the plucking strings and it's all the same book or something in the cabinets.
Yeah. It's to be fair to the movie. I mean, I remember reading the book a long time ago, and it wasn't like Michael Crichton's like hit or miss, and it wasn't the world's greatest book. So it's like with the source material, you only have so much that you can work with. You can do if the source material is not great, and it's like what you said, the ending. No ending is going to really satisfy.
Right.
That's a good choice. I remember that was supposed to come out the summer, and then they pushed it back to the winter. Yeah.
And another impressive kind of versatile effort from Barry Levinson. I mean, something completely different from anything that he'd done before. I've always championed Sphere. Let's take Dean's call.
Okay. I was just going to ask about Billy Bathgate, what everyone thought of that.
The Robert Benton movie, I mean, that's a tough character. Yeah. Schultz, right? That was really tepidly received. Yeah. Is it up for a reassessment? I haven't checked it out.
No, the reason I say that is because it was a lot of people played Judge Schultz, and and a lot of people thought it was miscast, and it's interesting to note that where he then years later played Meyer Lansky in the Andy Garcia movie The Lost City, and I thought it was very good as Meyer Lansky, actually.
I thought Billy Bathgate had the poor fortune of coming out on the heels of Bugsy, which was
it came out right around that, a month or two before Bugsy, yeah.
Which was a superior gangster movie.
Oh, much superior.
All right. Dean, I think this is Dean, 678.
That's it.
All right. What do you got to tell us about Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah, what do you got?
Dustin Hoffman. Well, first of all, my favorite of his performances, just right off the bat, is Tootsie. I think that's his most layered performance. I think it was a very difficult film to pull off in general, particularly with all the behind-the-scenes goings on, where they weren't sure if they had a script and, where they were going with it or anything, And the fact that it came out as great as it did, largely because of his performance, is enough for me to crown that his best performance. With Straight Time close by, he can play tough, And I think another thing is that you were talking earlier on in the show about how a lot of people don't bring his name up enough, when they're talking about Pacino and De Niro and all that. They forget about Hoffman. It's because Hoffman doesn't play tough a lot of the time, and so there's always a layer of vulnerability, even in something like Straight Time. Even in Straight Time, there's that first half of Straight Time where he really is trying to go straight, and then he just gives up and says, "I got to be what I am,"
Yeah. No. Classic Edward Bunker story.
Yeah. But there's always that sense that there's something mushy underneath. Even Kramer versus Kramer is another example. He's just a hard-driven ad exec, and then the movie turns on the fact that he finds something deeper within himself, to deal with the situation that he's in. But have you guys brought up Lenny yet?
Yeah, we talked about Lenny.
A little bit about it, yeah.
Yeah, I think Lenny is one of his great movies. Now here's some movies that you probably haven't talked about yet. And I missed a couple of minutes. I'm down here on the street in Brooklyn, so I can get a good reception here.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
But I thought it was worth it. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Who is Harry Kellerman and Why is he saying all these terrible things about me?
I've always wanted to. I've never had the time. I've never gotten a chance. But it's one of those films that you every couple of years you hear mentioned. You hear people talk about it still.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. It's he's a musician, famous musician who has somebody out there who has a beef with him, and it's got really great songs by Shel Silverstein in it. And to me, when I watch it, I only watched it one time about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was when it was released on VHS.
VHS, wow, okay.
And I don't know if it's made it onto DVD yet. I don't think it has. But I was really struck by how much I was like looking at it. I was going, man, I bet the Coen brothers were really influenced by this movie. It's got a few similarities to Big Lebowski in it, in some really strange ways.
Right.
So I highly recommend that movie. Also, Death of a Salesman, his take on Death of a Salesman.
Right, I was just going to mention Death of a Salesman. An epic emotional performance is Willy Loman. I mean, really, like a defining Willy Loman.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with that, yeah.
I mean, especially considering that Willy Loman was always considered a huge character as a he's always played by somebody like Brian Dennehy or Lee J. Cobb or somebody like that, Yeah, and then he gets in it. He's already mousy to begin with.
Yes.
So you can't really see how he's this great salesman, but yet Hoffman makes it work, And
I tell you what, rewatching Death of a Salesman, watching he and Malkovich go at it. Malkovich, who is not generally an emotional actor, and he's very emotional with Hoffman in the scenes where they're going back and forth, and he's saying, "Let me go, Pop. I'm just an ordinary guy. I'm not, legendary." And it's great back and forth between two great actors. That's really powerful stuff.
It is, and you feel like the walls are closing in on you on that movie. It was actually, of course, done for television, and it was perfect for television.
It was.
But it actually transcends television to become like this.
It does.
One of his most recent movies that I thought got a bad rap, although I think it has a smallish kind of cult, is Hero.
No, I love that film. That's a great film. We talked about that. Yeah.
Who directed that?
Stephen Frears,
yeah.
Stephen Frears, yeah. I think that's an underrated movie, man. I really
Very
do.
underrated. It was let's say it was dead on arrival when it came out. I mean, but it's great. I thought it was a really wicked satire.
Yeah, it was. It was, and the cast is terrific. I mean, it's really an ensemble cast in that movie.
Andy Garcia, Gina Davis. Mm-hmm.
Chevy Chase, was he in that? Chevy Chase?
Yeah.
You know, I've talked about this before, about the different phase that Hoffman seems to be entering, where he's accepting more and more supporting roles, and you get the sense that they're not meaty like he used to have back in his heyday, but they're a chance for him to work and to get comfortable and to practice his craft. And there's a joy in watching that in something like a Last Chance Harvey, where you know, it's just joyful watching him now for me. I mean, it's always been, but he doesn't have to play the tortured character necessarily. He's very comfortable presence on screen.
I love the fact that he's unlike a lot of actors. Pacino. Let's take Pacino for example. Pacino does do some supporting roles here and there, but it seems like Hoffman has really just, unless something out of the stratosphere comes along, it really seems like he's gotten comfortable and has actually been looking forward to this phase of his career where he could play character roles and not have to worry about carrying a whole movie. So therefore he could be in something like, Finding Neverland or, or he's doing a lot of animation, like a lot of voice work too, I noticed.
Panda.
Yeah, and he's doing another Kung Fu Panda now. What's interesting about him now is that he's actually, we mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, just signed up for a TV show to star in the new David Milch HBO series.
Oh, really?
Oh, that would be interesting.
I'm looking it up right now. It's a series called Luck. As soon as it comes up, I'll tell you about it. But that's something interesting. That'll be something to salivate over.
Yeah.
Well, I always wonder if it's easier, like, when actors and actresses get older. I think in the movie climate these days, I think they get a tendency to get passed over for anything but really tiny roles. And so then they start looking to TV, and I think they find a home for themselves on TV a lot of the time.
Well, this is a David Milch series. At least the pilot is directed by Michael Mann.
Right.
It's called Luck. It's a TV series centered around characters at a horse racing track. It's Dustin Hoffman starring with Nick Nolte and Dennis Farina.
Wow.
I mean,
that's
interesting.
Kevin Dunn is in it. They got a lot of Ian Hart, Jason Gedrick. I mean,
that's a good cast.
Yeah.
Richard Kind.
And I've always found Hoffman like extremely funny. Like, say what you will about Meet the Fockers, and Roland, I'm sure that you will. But he is hysterical, I think.
I think he's funny just in real life, if you see him talking in interviews or hear the commentaries, I think he's just naturally funny.
Yeah.
And so he probably relishes the opportunity to get that out on screen, which is probably why I think Tootsie still his best performance.
It's a good one. Now we haven't talked about one movie.
We haven't talked about the elephant in the room, really.
Yeah, Ishtar.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I think that's underrated. I think the first 45 minutes of it, I think it's a classic case of a comedy that gets bogged down by its plot.
Right.
There's too much.
So
plot.
prior to the Morocco stuff, you're with it.
Yeah.
I'm with it. Until they have to go overseas, and then it loses me because it loses its oomph.
Yeah, I remember when we watched it when it came on video and thinking, this isn't as bad as everyone made it out to be. It wasn't great, but it wasn't this atrocious film.
There's a lot of stuff about Ishtar in that Warren Beatty biography.
Oh yeah.
Beatty didn't want to do, or Hoffman didn't want to do Ishtar. But he just eventually gave up, and when he agreed to do it, he said, "Look, I've had so many hits in a row. I'm due for a flop." So that's the attitude he went in when he did Ishtar. And so it's interesting. I'd be interested in watching it again. I remember watching it opening weekend. That movie was dead on arrival. That movie had such awful word of mouth before it came out.
It really did. I mean, and I wouldn't mind actually, right in this day and age, watching it and seeing what it's like to watch it now. But
hey, he had come off Kramer versus Kramer, Tootsie, Death of a Salesman, and then he did Ishtar. Mm-hmm. But then he rebounded, and this is the elephant in the room. He rebounded the next year with Rainman, which obviously I think lots of people in this generation, if they think Dustin Hoffman or our generation, that maybe aren't so articulate in 70s cinema, will think Rainman when you say Dustin Hoffman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Of course.
And it's really, I remember Pauline Kael's review of Dustin Hoffman in Rainman, and I've always been conflicted about it. She said Dustin Hoffman finds one note on the piano in Rainman and plays it for 2 hours.
Well, if you're playing an autistic guy, what are you going to do?
That is the limitation of the character, though.
But now? Let me ask you this, Jamie: are you conflicted because Pauline Kael is someone that we all respect, and you especially respect, that you disagree with her on this?
I'm conflicted in that it is true, but that is the nature of the character.
Yeah, it is.
So, but can you classify that a great performance when the role itself doesn't offer color or variety?
Well, this is where you get into the old thing of the Academy loves if you play someone who has a handicap or something, you're guaranteed an Oscar nomination, kind of.
Yeah, is it a performance or is it a parlor trick? That's basically
that's the thing. I think it's a very good. Tropic Thunder dealt with this perfectly with Sean Penn's going full retard.
And I thought the Oscar that year should have gone to Hackman in Mississippi Burning.
That's it. Wow, that's interesting. Wow, tying it all together.
Yeah.
I agree, Jamie.
Thank you, Roland. And Roland, whatever we think of Tom Cruise, I think that Tom Cruise had the actor. The depth role in the movie.
Yeah,
he was the one that underwent the change.
Absolutely. He has to change. It's like in Philadelphia, Denzel Washington he's the one who changes in the movie. He is the one that has the major transformation. But it is, if you're sick or dying or have something wrong with you, you're going to win the Oscar. You're absolutely right about Tom Cruise. So Tom Cruise is very good in Rainman, something that is not mentioned a lot of times, but he really has the, how should I say it, the really multi-dimensional character in that.
Right.
And I think that's also true in Philadelphia, just to bring up another performance that is overshadowed by, and I'm not saying that these performances,
you're right.
Oscar performances are bad. I'm just saying their performances are just as worthy.
And I think you noticed that, like when you watched Rainman again, you started noticing Tom Cruise.
Right.
And it was just like Philadelphia, you might start to notice Denzel Washington.
Yeah. Right.
Roland, what do you like about the Marathon Man? Why does that stick out for you?
Because he hates going to the dentist.
I thought it. I think it was one of when you're a teenager and you're discovering things. I think it was when you're going back and watching stuff that was made before your time. It's one of the first movies that I've seen.
Yeah.
So it really stayed with me, and it's difficult to see Laurence Olivier do something modern that
so evil. He's so evil.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier was great in it, and the only other things I've seen him do is old extracts of him being on stage when he was it was a different time of acting.
That's the first Dustin Hoffman movie I remember watching. It was in the '70s, like late '70s, on TV one night, and I just found it so engrossing. You have this, the way the film opens up, and just Hoffman's character, Roy Scheider, and Laurence Olivier. It really is truly one of the best of those films that dealt with the whole subgenre of like Nazis in America, or the Nazis after the war, and that's definitely one of the best. It's one of the best of
one of the best genres of the 70s, which is the paranoid thriller.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's got a little bit of a potboiler quality to it, but that's not to take anything away from it. I think it's I think it's still a really great movie. Probably one of John Schlesinger's last really great movies.
Right, that's Schlesinger. That's right.
Yeah. I think that's. You guys know that story about the clash between Hoffman and Olivier on that movie, right? Where Hoffman was having trouble. Well, I'll do it for the audience or whatever. But Hoffman was having trouble getting into his character, and Hoffman was doing the whole method thing and trying to ask why behind every line and everything, and he couldn't get it, and finally Olivier just said, "Why don't you try acting, my boy?" You know, so that just says it right there, the clash of those two acting styles right there.
Years later, like a couple of years ago, did they ask?
I think that story is a bit of an urban myth. You hear it in sort of every single acting school, and I think he might have been making a joke or whatever.
Yeah.
That story was related to Daniel Day-Lewis, and they asked his opinion on it a couple of years ago, and Daniel Day-Lewis said, I think that Hoffman's exactly right, and I think it's diminishing what Laurence Olivier said. So
I think it's more of a joke, because there's always this. If there's a great book that I read earlier this year called Hellraisers about O'Toole, Burton, Oliver Reed, and Richard Harris, which deals with also deals with that generational shift in the British acting.
Yeah.
And I think Laurence Olivier was joking. And you think he has, it is obviously they come from two totally different schools of thought on acting. But it's.
I do think at heart, actors, when they know that the other's working hard, I think that they respect each other.
Yeah.
I can see the exchange happening.
Yeah. Oh, I can see it. Scary.
I bet it happened. We just don't know the tone of voice behind it.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's
what we're missing.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
Hook was, and Captain Hook seems like an interesting role for Hoffman, but the movie itself never really took flight, did it?
Oh, yeah, boy. That's something that I thought he was dreadful in that thing. Oh, yeah, terrible.
That's a movie where you have a big problem where your first 45 minutes to an hour is set up, and you're saying, can we please get this thing going?
Let me ask you this, though, about that film, because I'm not a big fan of the movie at all, but do you think it would have been interesting or if Dustin Hoffman would have played a character in his adult life, not just as Captain Hook, but if he was someone in the business world or someone he worked with, maybe, would that have helped the movie?
Maybe. I don't know that it would help it. I don't
know what could help it, but I thought at the time that was my initial thing. Just because I did the movie, there's something really just lackluster about that film, and of course, Roland's right about it. I'm going to agree with Roland 120%.
It's laborious. I mean, it's just,
it's ugly to look at. It's ugly to look at. It's ugly to listen to. It's just a terrible, terrible movie all around.
Mm-hmm.
I just, that's one movie I wish I could erase from my memory, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Just terrible. I mean, it was painful.
It was that back to back. Like he made that and Always Spielberg, and that So Jurassic Park was in some ways a big comeback, a really powerful comeback for him. Not that he ever needed a comeback, but it was after those two films, the way they were received. And then he
and Schindler's List in the same year.
That year, I mean, it was quite a year. '93 was quite a year for him.
Yeah,
and he Hoffman really ushered in the era of movie stars not being your typically handsome movie stars, which people always talk about in terms of the 70s. That's when the nature of the movie star changed. Hoffman broke that ground before any of the contemporaries because he had The Graduate in '67. Years before Pacino came on the scene or De Niro really hit. He had Midnight Cowboy. I mean, this is major anti-movie star material,
Yeah, I mean, he kind of, he kind of, he was kind of that bridge from, the sort of tall, John Wayne type character that was the movie star, tall, big guys, to smallish actors who were internally powerful,
Right.
So yeah, I mean he's definitely, and of course it comes right down to it, like in 1969 when John Wayne won the Oscar for True Grit over who should have won, which was Dustin Hoffman for Midnight Cowboy. So it's like they had to.
Well,
Hollywood had to put their chips in with John Wayne.
He was considered for the role of Michael Corleone in The Godfather.
But see that? No, but that, I don't.
Wasn't everyone?
But everybody was. Yeah.
Everyone was, but I liked that kind of makes more sense. But we just can't. I can't. At the time, I could see where. Now, was Coppola already directing at that time? Was he already attached as a director when they were thinking of Hoffman?
I don't know. Because
remember, Robert Redford and Warren Beatty
Yes.
were considered, and Jack Nicholson was even considered, and I mean everyone. You're right. Everyone was considered for it. I mean, even the janitor at Paramount was probably considered for it.
He was an early consideration to play the lead in Blade Runner.
I remember
that. Would have been a very
I
different
remember
movie. That would have been a very different movie.
Very strange to think of that.
He, Hackman, and Robert Duvall roomed together, obviously, when they were first starting out.
Yeah.
And among them, Hoffman was the first one to really hit it big, and probably the one that they considered least likely among the three of them to do that. Isn't that always the way?
Yeah.
Have we talked about Papillon yet?
I mentioned it as one that I liked, and I do like that movie a lot.
Who did direct that? Who directed Papillon?
It was Franklin Schaffner.
That's right.
Okay.
The same director as Planet of the Apes.
The boys from Brazil and Patton. Yeah.
Right. I think he's really great in that movie, and every time I read a review of that film, generally the review is middling to poor, and they always single out Hoffman's performance in that film as being one of its weak links, and I don't believe that at all. I think it's very strong, and he actually elicits, he comes close to eliciting tears from me during a couple of key scenes in it. So I don't get what people don't like about Papillon. Like, what is
I did not know that it was not liked. I've always heard it. Well, I think that's another thing. I just in circles that seen it as nothing less than well regarded, but I don't know. I do like it though. I like obviously anything with McQueen in it. I'm gonna gravitate towards. So
another following with Pacino, another mere parallel with Pacino, and they haven't acted together before. They've been in Dick Tracy. They were both in Dick Tracy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
That'd be interesting. That would be a great comedic couple if you could get Pacino and Hoffman together, as a low-life comedic friends or foils or something.
Mm-hmm.
That would be beautiful.
I think it'd be interesting as brothers.
Yeah, exactly.
Stigmatic too.
Pacino and Julie Christie were the original cast of Marathon Man.
That would have been a better movie because I think Martha Keller is pretty. Martha.
Well, speaking of Martha Keller, Dustin Hoffman was the original for Bobby Deerfield with Martha Keller.
That's right.
Still haven't seen that. I'm kind of curious to see that movie for some reason.
Yeah, you can pass.
Coming from him, really? He said it, not me. He said it, so that's quite a statement from Jamie.
The great thing about Dustin Hoffman is, he's still working a lot. If you see his in development stuff, he's still got a major output. He wanted to do Merchant of Venice, the film version that Pacino ended up doing. It goes on and on.
That would have been just as interesting too. That would have been.
Yeah, Hoffman is even more of an obvious choice than Pacino to play that role, actually.
Yeah.
Why don't you think Hoffman doesn't go back to the stage?
I don't know.
That's a good question, Roland. I don't know.
I wonder if we kind of talked about this a little bit during the Gene Hackman show, but I just think that after a while, movie actors are just movie actors, and they can't. They're not sure if they even want to go back to the stage to try anything because they're so ingrained in that kind of performing, that kind of intimate performing.
But
So,
if you look to see who's on Broadway at any given time, there's a whole bunch of big A-list movie actors there. I mean, Denzel Washington. I mean, they all jump in and do plays.
Yeah, they're. I notice it's also rolling a lot of younger actors too, younger A-listers.
Pacino's going back this summer for Merchant of Venice, actually.
But he should. I mean, I would welcome it. I mean, it's a good place to get recharged, re-enthused about these.
What's that, Roland?
Jamie, is Pacino going back stage?
Yeah, Central Park. He's playing Merchant Shylock again in Merchant of Venice on stage.
Didn't he do with Chris? Who did it in the 90s? There was, I think it was Macbeth or Othello. Christopher Walken and Raul Julia.
Yeah. Oh God, that would have been. I really wanted to see Raul Julia play Dracula on Broadway. That would have been amazing.
There's a guy who left us way too soon.
Yeah, really. I mean, massively. Let's close the show. Let's take this 215 area code phone call. It's busy night. 215, you're on the line.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, buddy. What's your name?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what, it's great to see someone actually putting a show on this website about Dustin Hoffman.
Well, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
I'm hoping maybe next week you guys can do Christopher Walken and do a whole 2 hours.
I'll for it.
I'll tell you right now, he's awesome. Need more cowbell. Need more cowbell.
Well,
I was actually just looking up Dustin Hoffman, and apparently he's got the virus or something.
The virus.
He's got he's got a virus or something.
Dustin Hoffman has a virus?
You have a virus in the chat room.
What's your favorite Dustin Hoffman performance?
The one where he's in that movie with the one with he was in the other movie too.
Okay, I'll see you later, man. All right.
And there we have it.
What a great way to close the show.
Well, should we talk about, I think it was Joel who brought up in the chat room, we should talk about how he handles himself so coolly when the Lily Tomlin freakout video, David O. Russell on I Heart Huckabees.
Right, right.
Doesn't he just kind of walk off set, or what does he do?
He really handles himself.
He freaking bolts, man.
Yeah.
And then Lily Tomlin gets on to him in the car.
Yeah.
And he's like, use it. She's like, screw you.